One thing I wanted to note for today's class and for everybody that's watching this is that we have just come through the kind of hard unpacking part of the entire process, where we're kind of looking at the field of play, the roles that you're playing, where you feel like you're not bringing your, most heroic self to a situation, or you're not, even taking action towards the things that you want to pursue, and all that kind of stuff that we beat ourselves up on when it comes to our performance, okay? But the caveat with all of this is that at the end of the day, you don't necessarily, in order to tap into the power of an alter ego, even to get 10%, 20%, 30% of the power of out of an alter ego, is all of that stuff doesn't necessarily have to be answered. We do it in order to gather 100% of the strength of tapping into this idea, so that we understand why we're doing it, what's causing some of the ways that we might be being held back by the strings of resistance. But at the end of the day, the great power of this is it's tapping into the playful nature of our creative imagination, right? Like that's one thing that I need to reinforce consistently, that is one of the great superpowers that this is unlocking for us, right? And so really, even if you did nothing but week 3 today and week 4, that could be just enough for people. Because the danger in any sort of personal development that I've seen is that people just lob a bunch of questions at you, as if you're journaling your entire life, so that you can get clarity on something, and find the answers that you're looking for. However, for me, that's a classic sign that people are trying to just stuff value into a process or a program, but they don't understand, because they haven't worked with people one-on-one, the real nuance of getting people to burst through a comfort zone or make a big change. Is that a lot of the things that can be holding people back are very unconscious, and trying to attack it with conscious processing of questions and things isn't necessarily the best way, which again is why, using our creative imagination powers and tapping into the idea of an alter ego is so powerful, because we end up moving past that narrative and around it, because no longer are those strings attached to, what we're doing and how we're showing up. And so now all of that narrative doesn't matter as much anymore. So I'm saying that because questions are always used as our tool for processing, okay? So all those questions that are there are not necessary. There's no star next to it that says mandatorily answered or something like that, right? They're just, sort of you can ping on the ones that might be interesting for you to kind of dive into. And again, if your kind of paradigm that you're operating through is that you're beating yourself up and you're judging yourself and all that's not the way. This is a curiosity play more than anything else. It's like, well, what is it about the way that I've shown up or not shown up that's hurt or helped in the past? So but for some people, like Chris says here, he wants the whole story. That's for the super ambitious folk, right? Anyways, great to have everybody here today. Excited about this part, because this is where we're truly getting into activating the alter ego and exploring the extraordinary world that we're trying to create, more missions and untapping the superpowers, the super capabilities, the traits that we most want to be bringing out, and also coming up with the name of that alter ego as well. Now, I just want to check out some of the comments that have come in. Good. Julie says, okay, this makes me feel better. It's been difficult and I've not completed everything, so feeling like I'm behind. I tend to want to get things right and then can hold me up. Well, Julie, that's a perfect example of something that exists in the ordinary world. That's the little, voice of the enemy. You got to get it all right. It's got to be perfect. You know, you never want to get out there and, you know, make a fool of yourself. And yet right there lies the great opportunity for you. I'll give you this as a bonus. People that are in my higher level programs have heard me do this. They've taken the challenge from me on this, where the one of the first things I get, and I started doing this probably 15, 16 years ago. One of the first things I started doing with my athletes, and then brought it into the professional world with the entrepreneurs and executives that I've worked with, is because so many people are so concerned about how they look to other people. The fear of judgment, looking funny, looking silly, stupid, whatever the case is, that judgment, that criticism. The very first kind of activity, because I'm all about getting you onto the field of play, getting out there, because even sitting down and answering these questions, there's value in it, but there's way more value by getting out and attempting and trying and, you know, scuffing up your knee and all that kind of good stuff. So for me, I want to get them out there. Well, one of the best ways I was able to help people get past that narrative and that concern of what they look like to other people is to get them involved in improv. Because standing on a stage and being completely improvisational, standing up there and not knowing, there's no script in front of you, and being able to read and react and respond, and then understanding the tools that are used in improvisation, was one of the most effective ways that I could get people out of their head and into their body, into the moment, to find flow and zone state. So on that note then, Julie, I would challenge you to also think about getting into an improv class, because there's no even paradigm that exists around being perfect at all. So just another little insidious string that the, you know, enemy can use, because you got to get it all right. You got to figure it all out, which if you operate that way, you will never, it'll be impossible to start anything. Okay. Super confronted by resistance right now. Yesterday I had an important interview and kept thinking about my alter ego and kept hearing the battle in my head with the parts of me saying, you are a fake. Awesome. Be a fake then. You know, you're not pretending to show up and be a maxillofacial reconstructive surgeon when you don't have the training. This is not about faking skill, faking competency, faking, you know, a set of letters behind your name, right? That isn't where most of the resistance sits in people's lives. Most of the resistance sits at the mental and emotional level, rarely at the action layer that I talk about, right, on the field of play model. Most of you have acquired such tremendous amount of skills and abilities, but there is this resistance point between getting it onto the field of play, which comes from the layer sitting below, that needs to be figured out. And that's where that alter ego can help unpack those skills and abilities. So you're not being fake at all. Okay. Well, I'm going to jump in and, of course, check in absolutely 100% throughout, and upload some videos that I've started recording around some of the questions that have been coming in into the group and then into the members area as well for everybody. So let's jump in to today's session. Bring up, all right. And grab my chat box. Okay. Okay, so week 3 masterclass, activating your alter ego, your extraordinary world mission, superpowers, and names. So one of my mentors early on in life, this is Jim Rohn's quote, where he says, if you're not willing to risk the unusual, you'll have to settle for the ordinary. And for me, as someone who was consistently caught up when I was very young by trying to be everyone's best friend, this was something that I was not very good at. But the moment I unshackled myself from that and was willing to be unusual, even now, being the person who goes out and talks about the glasses aren't real, you know, alter egos. I've had people try to confront me about being fake. And for me in my head, I just find it really entertaining when that happens, because what people are doing is they're simply just arguing against themselves, because there's just no denying it. It is impossible for anyone to ever tell me that they haven't used this already. And the fact that my glasses aren't real has nothing to do with the fact that I'm showing up and being fake to people. I'm using them now as actually a symbol for other people to show them that, you know, there's a lot of power in showing up with the intention of bringing your absolute best qualities to that situation. I'm operating from an inside out approach. I'm doing this because I'm being very intentional, that I'm trying to show up in the most confident and competent and articulate and decisive way I possibly can, so that I can give you value. Because if I don't, I show up with a lack of confidence, a lack of decisiveness, an inability to be articulate, then your value that you can reap goes down. So, and again, now I just wear these things for dress. But anyways, it's funny. I could care less about the arguments of people who want to argue for their limitations. So moving forward, what we're going to cover today: one, we're going to identify what you want your extraordinary world to look like using the want, don't want method. We want to paint a detailed picture of what it looks and feels like to live the extraordinary world. How will your alter ego act, behave, think, speak, and perform on your chosen field of play? All really good and valuable ways to be thinking through this idea, to unpack more of its power. Get crystal clear on your mission and what you're fighting for, so that you know why you're creating an alter ego and why you want to make it your extraordinary world on this field of play. Identify the superpowers that you need most to ensure you show up as your heroic self on that field of play. Create a description of each of your superpowers and how they show up. And name your alter ego using our very easy to follow Mad Libs type system, so that we can bring a form and substance to it, right? The moment that we name something, just like we talked about last week around the enemy, giving it form and shape, the more you bring it out of the shadows for that enemy side of things, now you can, you know, touch it, feel it, talk to it, move it back to the sidelines. Same thing goes. It's really important that we bring that identity and that shape and that form to that heroic identity that we're creating, so it's got form and shape to go out and help us navigate the challenges that lie ahead. All right. So today, what we're doing is we are impacting right here, right here, right here, and right here. The purpose of last week was to cover off this area over here. And then next week, we're going to wrap it up with the totem and the artifact and truly unpacking that origin story. This right here creates the deep kind of super emotional resonance to the alter ego, this idea, this future that we're creating. All right, good or good, everybody. So moving forward, oops, here we go. Your goal here is to build an alter ego that will go on a quest for what you want. All right, and at the end of the day, what can't be lost on everybody here is that that alter ego is still 100% a representation of you. And we use it in many ways. We use it in many forms. Some people use it as a way to shield their kind of more inner sensitive self from, you know, the arrows of resistance and judgment and concern of what other people think, to go out there. That's one thing that some people use it as a creative expression for themselves, to get just their ideas out there, to tap into a new way of thinking. We've got the school that my daughter Molly goes to here in New York City. It's the one of the first, I think the first public school in America down in the West Village, PS3 John Charette. And one of someone that we've become friends with in Molly's class, he's a famous music producer, works with Bono and tons of other musicians. Anyways, I had given out a bunch of books to a bunch of the parents there. And when he came back in the very next day, and my daughter Molly thinks he's just the coolest guy because he's got way longer hair than I do. And anyways, so we're chatting, and he said, this book is amazing, and you've simply given voice to something that I've used and all of my clients and entertainers use all the time. He's like, you know, because I'm mixing music from very different genres. And so when I do that, I actually have a custom kind of self that I bring to that sort of mixing environment out there. And so for him, it's creative expression. It's to truly bring the best of his qualities and abilities into that new sort of genre without bringing in the kind of methodologies of genres that might not work. So that's another way that we do it. It could be just the way that we want to activate ourselves because we're starting something new and we want to show up with just super powerful attitudes to help us conquer these new skills and adopt them much more rapidly. Because once you have that open vessel, like this cup right here, this cup, this open vessel where you can just pour in the skills, and there's not a filter on top of attitudes that end up muddying the water, right? Negativity and doubt and all of these other sort of filters of belief and attitude that can take pure skill, pure ability, and all of a sudden start to color it in a way that doesn't allow you to see what is capable of yourself, which then ends up creating resistance to getting it out there. An alter ego, that's another way. Rapid skill adoption is another way to use this idea, amongst many, many, many more, and to just be playful. So to keep this going, extraordinary versus the ordinary worlds here. When I'm talking about the juxtaposition of both of them, extraordinary world still has challenges, dragons, and obstacles as the ordinary. But where it starts to differ is when we're actively moving into this space. It's the difference between outside in and inside out, right? In the ordinary world, we allow the circumstances, the situations, the people that are involved in a specific moment of impact to color the way that we show up, right? We say things like, oh, well, I can speak, I just can't speak around, there you go, my lawyer was calling. I just can't speak around a certain quality of person, right? Someone who's quote unquote more important or higher up on the totem pole than me. That's an outside in. Extraordinary world is inside out. It's honoring the fact that you're bringing your intention, you're deciding how you're going to show up, you're creating the outcome that you're looking for, and you're not going to fall prey to the paradigms that exist amongst society that trap us, right? And by the way, this isn't about living perfectly with it. We'll all slip into ordinary worlds. We'll sometimes get caught up in, oh, what is that other person going to think? But over time, you end up developing such a great coaching power in your own head that you'll catch yourself much more quickly because we're bringing up levels of awareness. So extraordinary world, more meaning, more intention, more possibility exists there. And then on the ordinary side, we end up building story and excuses and reasons why we can't, which then all of a sudden causes us to play small. And how we know that's happening is simply the pillow at night when we lay our head down on it and we take a look back on the day. And most people will do a fantastic job of beating themselves up over the things that they didn't do. They should have said, why didn't I take that action? Why didn't I raise my hand and speak up? Why didn't I ask for the sale? Why didn't I? But when you know that you're bringing a very powerful sense of identity to a situation, that intention alone can be enough for people to act out of a pure place of knowing what you're made of. Not who you are, but what you're made of. Because I talked about last week, the dangers of the question, who are you versus what are you? Who are you? Disempowering for most people because it creates a past story, right? As soon as I say, who are you? A lot of people will unpack and tell me their past, right? Or the definition that you give me is going to be based on that. What are you is substantive. It's based in form. It's based in substance. What are you? Very different realities for people. So if you got questions around that, just let me know.